Today, we're diving deep into one of the hottest topics swirling around the MLB offseason: trade rumors and potential landing spots for one of the game's premier defensive talents. Nolan Arenado. As a 10-time Gold Glove Award winner, Arenado's name has been on the lips of every baseball executive and analyst for months now. But while his skills on the field are indisputable, the question remains: would the New York Mets be the right home for this star third baseman? Let's set the stage. The New York Mets have been aggressively retooling their roster this offseason. With high-profile signings like Juan Soto and the return of Alonso through free agency, the Mets have sent a clear message: they're determined to bolster their lineup with proven all-star talent. However, even as they add these marquee names, trade rumors have continued to swirl, suggesting that the Mets might have their eyes on even more talent to complete their puzzle. One name that's recently surfaced is none other than Nolan Arenado. According to a report by John Heyman of the New York Post, the star third baseman from the St. Louis Cardinals has included the Mets on his list of desired landing spots. At first glance, this might sound like a match made in MLB heaven. Arenado is, after all, one of the most decorated infielders in the game. With 10 Gold Glove awards to his name, he epitomizes excellence on defense. Yet, as the details unfold, the picture becomes much more nuanced, and not necessarily in favor of a Mets landing. First, let's address the obvious: positional fit. The New York Mets currently have their third base in play with Mark Vientos. While Vientos has been noted for his offensive contributions, his defensive metrics have raised eyebrows. This might suggest that a defensive upgrade at third base could be appealing. However, the reality is that the Mets have built their infield with a specific blueprint in mind. Not only is third base already occupied, but the corner infield situation is further complicated by the presence of a solid first baseman. Essentially, the roster isn't exactly screaming out for another high-priced infielder, especially one who might demand a significant contract. This brings us to the next critical factor: age and production. At 33 years old, Nolan Arenado is undeniably a veteran. And while his resume is storied, his recent performance trends raise some concerns. Last season, he managed to hit only 16 home runs and posted a 102 WRC+, figures that hint at a possible decline from his peak years. While a change of scenery could potentially rejuvenate a player, the financial risk becomes enormous when dealing with a veteran contract. Arenado is currently under contract for 3 years and $74 million. In today's market, that number might look like a bargain for someone with his track record. But it could also limit the Mets' flexibility to pursue additional upgrades later on. We must also consider the broader financial landscape of the Mets this offseason. The team has already spent significant sums to secure free agent deals for players like Soto, Alonso, and Sean Manaea, the largest paychecks in the organization's recent history. Adding another substantial contract for a declining veteran like Arenado could have ramifications that stretch far beyond a single position. The financial flexibility required to build a competitive roster is at a premium. And the Mets front office has to balance the allure of a defensive superstar with the pragmatic needs of a team gearing up for a long season. Beyond the numbers, there's a strategic aspect to this potential move. The Mets are in a competitive window in the National League, and their roster construction reflects a desire to contend immediately. The emphasis appears to be on enhancing the starting pitching rotation, a unit that has been battered by injuries in recent years, and on maintaining offensive firepower. In such a scenario, trading valuable assets for a player who might be past his prime doesn't necessarily align with the team's long-term vision. While Arenado's defense is elite, his offensive production is a critical component of his overall value. And the declining numbers are a red flag for a team that can ill afford to take a step backward. When we step back and look at the bigger picture, the idea of Nolan Arenado joining the Mets becomes even more complicated. On the one hand, Arenado is a name that resonates with excellence. His ability to light up the field defensively is legendary, and he brings a level of intensity that can elevate any team's culture. On the other hand, the potential cost and risk associated with signing a veteran whose numbers are trending downward might not mesh well with the Mets' current roster strategy. The organization has been careful not to overpay in a market that is already witnessing astronomical figures, especially after deals like Juan Soto's $700 plus million megadeal have reshaped the landscape. Furthermore, it's worth noting that Arenado has been on the trade block since the start of the offseason. Despite the interest from various suitors, the St. Louis Cardinals have struggled to find a deal that meets their valuation. This stalemate suggests that while Arenado is highly desired, the market for him is not as robust as one might expect given his accolades. The Cardinals seem to have a firm idea of his worth, and that puts additional pressure on potential trade destinations like the Mets to justify a move that could disrupt their roster construction. For the Mets, the decision ultimately comes down to a matter of priorities. The team is built on the foundation of aggressive acquisitions aimed at winning now. With a strong core already in place and a focus on areas like starting pitching, the addition of an aging infielder, even one of Arenado's stature, could be seen as a misstep. The risk-reward equation simply doesn't favor a move that might compromise the team's ability to compete at the highest level. In a competitive league where every roster move is scrutinized, the Mets would be hard-pressed to justify trading valuable assets for a player whose prime years may be behind him. Let's also consider the strategic alternatives. The Mets are not short on talent. With emerging prospects and established stars already on the roster, there are likely other avenues to improve the team without taking on additional long-term financial commitments. The focus on starting pitching, in particular, highlights where the Mets believe they can make the most immediate impact. If they were to divert resources to acquire another infielder, it might come at the expense of further bolstering a rotation that has already been a source of concern. In a sport as nuanced as baseball, every piece of the puzzle must fit just right, and sometimes that means passing on even the most tantalizing names. Now, while the idea of adding a defensive stalwart like Arenado might capture the imagination of some fans, the practical realities cannot be ignored. The Mets are in a position where maintaining a balanced roster is paramount. They've already committed to high-priced deals that have reshaped their payroll, and taking on another large contract could limit their ability to make additional moves down the line. In today's MLB, financial flexibility is as critical as on-field performance, and the Mets management is acutely aware of that fact. Critically, the discussion around Arenado also touches on broader trends in MLB. The free agent market has seen dramatic shifts in recent years, with superstar contracts reaching heights that were once unimaginable. The landscape is now such that every move is measured not only in terms of immediate impact but also in long-term value and marketability. In this context, the comparison between Arenado and other high-profile signings is inevitable. While his defensive prowess is undeniable, the overall package must be compelling enough to warrant the investment. And as it stands, many believe that the Mets would be taking on more risk than reward by pursuing him. In conclusion, while Nolan Arenado's name may be on the list of preferred landing spots for the star third baseman, the reality is that the New York Mets are likely not the ideal fit for him at this time. With an already crowded infield, a roster built around aggressive, forward-thinking acquisitions, and the financial constraints that come with recent mega deals, the Mets have little incentive to make a move for an aging veteran whose recent production does not match his illustrious past. Unless there's a mind-blowing offer that completely shifts the calculus, it's highly unlikely that we'll see a deal between the Mets and Arenado before opening day. As we wrap up this deep dive into the trade dynamics and roster strategies of one of baseball's most exciting offseason periods, it's clear that while the allure of a 10-time Gold Glove winner is undeniable, every trade carries with it a complex mix of financial, strategic, and performance-based considerations. For the Mets, the priority remains clear. Build a team that can compete for a championship now and sustain that success into the future without overextending their resources. I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think the Mets should pursue Nolan Arenado? Or is this a case where the numbers just don't add up? How should the Mets balance the need for immediate impact with the long-term health of their roster? Let's spark a conversation about the future of MLB trade dynamics and the evolving nature of superstar contracts. Thank you for joining me on this comprehensive exploration of one of the season's most intriguing trade rumors. Stay tuned for more updates, analysis, and insights as we continue to follow the twists and turns of the MLB offseason. Until next time, keep your passion for baseball alive. And remember, every trade Every contract and every roster move tells a story that shapes the future of the game. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.